attention. So this is the crux of what we want to talk about. I want to move a little quickly. One of my concerns about Generation Y is moving up the corporate ladder. All right? That's fine. And I love the term running up the corporate ladder. My concern is many millennials, not all, are very concerned about titles. I know one at the hospital who had just gotten a new promotion, and like within 2 weeks, he's like, okay, when am I going to get this title? I was like, slow down. Like, you're still learning how to do this job. And listen, there's nothing wrong with planning. You know me, I'm a planner. But you have to be realistic. Titles are not as important. You need to learn how to be a leader. So I use our president and executive vice president, who I think are two of the most visionary leaders. Look at Michael Dowling at Northwell and all the leaders of major hospital organizations. They're visionary. They did not learn how to do that by running up the corporate ladder. So it's okay to run. Don't get me wrong. Get on your grind, get your hustle, whatever you're going to do. What I want you to do is be prepared to learn how to be an effective leader. Because if you want to get to the C-suite, knowing how to make an app, knowing how to use a computer, knowing how to communicate by email is not going to cut it. It's experience. It's not just doing XYZ, it's really letting that become part of you. It goes back to calling, feeling that calling to do what you do. Healthcare administration is a little bit different than the corporate world. I believe that firmly. And I had spent 3 years in finance. It was the worst 3 years of my life at New York Presbyterian. I was miserable in finance. But at the same time, those were the best 3 years. Because I learned that budget from top to bottom. You can't tell me anything about the budget that I don't know. And it helped me in my, that was kind of half mid-career at New York Presbyterian. So the rest of my career at New York Presbyterian, having that finance piece was really helpful for me. But you have to embrace what's going on around you. I was talking with Sana earlier, and I was actually shocked when she was talking to me about the program, and I was asking her, so what leadership classes are you guys doing? And she's like, well, they're electives. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So what are you doing in the program? So she said, we're doing policy and healthcare policy and marketing and strategy and all that, and that is wonderful. That's really good. I want you all to make sure, though, that you're getting that leadership in. And that you're taking some leadership classes and learning some of the practices and learning how to be leaders. It sounds silly and it sounds simple, but it's important. I've seen a lot of people who are smart at what they do. They know how to make a budget, they know how to crunch a few numbers, they know how to look polished, but they're not good leaders. What is a leader? Okay, we're going to Leadership 101. Somebody took it. What's a leader? Yes, sir, in the back.
He's someone who others choose to follow.
Someone who others choose to follow. I like the way you said that. What would make them choose to follow them? What is it that made them choose?
The leader would act in a way that would inspire them to be confident in that this person has their back, that this person is competent, and that this person cares for them.
Perfect answer. If I had a prize, I'd give it to you. That's perfect. A leader is a person of influence. So that could be good or bad. Hitler was a leader. He influenced a whole lot of people, just not to do anything constructive. So what I want you all to do is be influencers. And I'm not talking about that social media influencer thing. We're not even going to go there. Because you know why? Those people are influencers because they go by numbers. I got 30,000 people following me. But following you to do what? All right, so I watch makeup tutorials. I watch hair tutorials. I watch those things, but none of those people are influencing me. But that's what a leader is. A leader is a person of influence. I heard another definition of leader that is my personal definition, and it's be yourself. There's always a question of, are leaders born or made? That was always a question in all my leadership classes. And I believe it's a combination of both. I believe that some people are born to lead. But I believe that everybody has the ability to lead. It's just the question of, we're all influencers. So there was a joke my friends and I used to play when we were younger. I went to a lot of church conferences growing up, and we would be at banquets, and a few of us would be sitting on the dais, and then our colleagues would be sitting down at the tables, and during the program we'd start acting silly, and we'd look down at our table and we'd go, and they would all start going. Do that once. It works. I do it to my kids all the time. And then they'll go, what? Mommy, what? And I'm like, but so we all have the ability to influence. I didn't even do that much. And I influenced somebody to do something that they would not have done had I not done it. That's leadership. Not necessarily good leadership or effective leadership, but that means we all have the genetic capability of doing that. So why not hone it? Don't take for granted, well, I'm a leader. I was president of this and I was president of that. Don't take for granted that you're a real leader. You just got elected. I'm not going to go there. So to be yourself is to be who you're called to be. And I talk a lot about calling, because yes, you may go from job to job, but I want to see you in a position where I want to be a healthcare administrator. I might do it in finance, I might do it in technology, I might do it here, I might be a C-suite person, I might be this or that, but I want you to feel called to do that. If you decide you want to be an accountant, feel called to be an accountant. Why you would do that, I'm not sure, but because I hated finance. But be yourself. Be who you're supposed to be. I wasn't supposed to be a pediatrician. I wasn't supposed to be a secretary. I was supposed to be a healthcare administrator, because that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Not just because I've been at NYP for 26 years. I just happen to have great opportunities there. But even if I were somewhere else, I'd still be a healthcare administrator. And I'd still be learning how to lead. It's an ongoing process. I'm still being mentored. I will continue to be mentored until I retire and they drag me out of some hospital, kicking and screaming, saying, you just need to retire. Alondra, it's time for you to stop. So be yourself. Know the culture. This is crucial. This is probably the most important bullet. I want to stress that to you because when I had Danielle as an intern, and I had another intern the year before her, I did the same thing, I would tell them to come to meetings with me. And I would tell them, just watch. Tell me what you see. So I had two great interns. The former intern, in fact, she was from Iowa. Yeah, we laughed at her all summer. She's from Iowa. Millennials, you need to learn how to take a joke, okay? We're going to laugh at you. But we loved Ashley to death. She actually just emailed me yesterday. She got married. She sent us pictures. She is now the program manager for OBGYN at Christiana Health Center in Delaware. But when she was our intern, I said to her after the first couple of meetings, hey, what did you see? She said, well, you were talking about this project and that project, and I noticed there was some interesting things about finance and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you're giving me the textbook answer. You're telling me what you learned in your MHA program. What did you see? Now, Danielle, well, it's because she went to Cornell, okay? She knew how to answer the question. I said to Danielle, what did you see? She said, I saw a lot of people on their cell phones during the meeting, looking at their email. She said, I saw some woman at one of those meetings who every time you said something, she just kept pushing back. And I had to think for a minute. I was like, well, wait a minute, which one was that? And wait a minute. Who was that pushing back? Because I was running the meeting. And so I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's a story behind that. There's always a story with me. But I was asking her to look at the culture of the organization. That is the most crucial thing you can do to fit in wherever you go, is to understand the culture of the department, the culture of the campus, because for 20 some years I had been at NYP. But when I went to Westchester, the culture of that campus was totally different. It was more family oriented. The people had been there forever, from the leaders down. Our CNO started there as a staff nurse 44 years ago. And so if you go to just as a kind of a trick, if you go to a major health center, know that every campus is going to be different. Every department is going to have a different culture. There is an NYP culture that we have, but there's subcultures wherever you go. When do you learn the culture of an organization? You learn the culture and you learn the people. So I'm going to talk about all those together. Actually, because my kids see me, travel a lot, I ask them, they're like, what are you doing, Mommy? I'm like, I'm trying to work on this presentation for when I go to Cornell. So my daughter's 10. I said, Yvette, if you were starting a new job, what would be the first thing you would do? She goes, I'd get to know the people. She really did say that. And I was like, that's a good point. Why? She said, because I need to know who I'm working with. I said, do you do that at school? She goes, yeah. I always look to see, are there any new kids? So I said, that's interesting. So I said, that's actually, I'm going to use that in my presentation. Really, Mommy? Really? I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So thanks to Yvette, know the people. Know the people, build relationships, be a good communicator. I'm lumping all these together. When do you do this? You do this at your interview. You can read about your organization because they taught you, you read about NYP, you read about so-and-so. So you come to the interview, you know how many discharges we have, you know how many staff are on there, you know all that stuff, you know how old the hospital is. You do not know the culture until you start your first day there. You don't know the culture until you interview. So this is an interview question. How do you all answer the question? So this was a struggle for me. When they always say, do you have any questions for us? What are the answers that you give? I know you've all been interviewing for something. What's the answer that you give? When they say, okay, thank you, it's been wonderful talking with you today. Brendan, do you have any questions for us?
Let's see. I'll probably ask like an obvious question. What are some traits or components that I need to be good at to excel in this position?
Good answer. Good question. Yeah, good question. So I'm going to refine that just a little bit. And one of my mentors told me this. I never knew what to say because I had research. So what else did I need to ask? So I said, this has been tripping me up for a long time. I need you to help me with this. She said, this is the question you ask. What does success look like for this position? Which is very similar to what you said. You took it to the other step. What do I need to do to get to that success? That's the magic bullet question. Write it down, remember it, ask it. I guarantee you, 100% money back guarantee, it will work. And I'll tell you why it'll work. When I interviewed to come to Westchester, I did 4 interviews. So I interviewed with the CNO, I interviewed with my boss, the chief operating officer, and I interviewed with the medical director. I didn't know that question yet. I talked to my mentor after those 3 questions, those 3 interviews. Then I did a panel interview. And it was with 5 people who were directors that were on my level, and one of them was going to be somebody that was going to be reporting directly to me. So they said, well, Calandra, do you have any questions for us? Well, yes, I do. What does success look like in this position? And I kind of tailor it depending on who's with me. So I said it, it's like you guys are working in different departments. So what does success look like between us and how we interact with each other? And they were, oh. And I remember my good friend Doug, he retired. He said, well, it would be different for each one of us. I said, well, then let's start with you. And I took command of that interview right at that point. And every one of them answered that question. And do you know what I found? On the way home, I said to myself, I'm driving, going, yeah, that went well. And I said, if I get this job, I went around that room in my mind. And I'm doing it right now. I'm going around that room in my mind. I knew what my first meeting would look like with each one of those people. I knew that the person who was going to be my direct report, who's in charge of our ambulatory clinics, I understood that she often felt left out because everybody talked about inpatient, no one talked about outpatient. I had a background in outpatient. The first job I had at New York Presbyterian was working for the outpatient department. She immediately felt a connection. She also was concerned because she was the only clinical person who reported to me. So I knew when I start working with her, I need to make that connection. One of them said, well, you know, your predecessor, we were always working on facilities projects together. I was in his office every day. Doug and I became best friends. He taught me facilities. So in that little question, I got a wealth of information so that by the time I started, I knew what everybody did, and I knew what my relationship with those people was going to be. I was already a step ahead of the game. We interviewed somebody for a project manager position. She was crackerjack. I was very impressed. She took my question to another level, and I was extremely impressed. We did a panel interview with her. We said, so, do you have any questions? She pulled out a piece of paper, slapped it down on the table. She said, Calandra. And I was like, she said, you're the director of operations. What kind of projects are you going to have me working on? I was like, so we had joked amongst us, like, I thought we were interviewing her. I felt all of a sudden very on the other side of the table. I said, well, so after I answered the question, I looked at my colleague and said, did I do okay? Did I get the job? She's like, yeah, you got the job. The other person was the director of quality. She said, well, Judy, you're the director of quality, and she asked a very specific question. I was like, this girl did her home. I was very impressed. I didn't act like I was impressed, but I was impressed. Actually, we made her an offer, and she actually rescinded because she had another offer on the table. That's how good she was. But I was like, I got to write that down. And somebody was like, oh, that's kind of rude. I said, no, it wasn't. It was brilliant. Because she asked that particular question, had she taken the job, her first day she would have known boots on the ground what she needed to do. That's one less thing you got to worry about when you start your new position. Understand the culture and know the people. When you're in a meeting, don't say anything for the first couple of weeks. My mother used to always say, keep your mouth shut and your eyes open. You'll learn a lot. People ask me, how did you fit in? Because it was actually even surprising to me, like, how did you fit in so quickly at Westchester? And people thought it was because I was already from New York, New York Presbyterian. And I said, no, this culture is very different here. So someone said, well, how did you fit in? I said, I kept my mouth shut for a little bit. And I listened, and I learned. Because one thing one of my former mentors taught me was, people are people wherever you go. Well, that was actually Dr. Seuss. But no, he would say, I'm sorry, I just got confused. He would say, he went to Cornell too. No, he would say, Bill would say, where there are people problems. People are people. So all you got to do is just listen. Nobody's trying to impress you when you start your new job. You're the one trying to impress people. You want to impress people? Don't speak out all the time, not for those first couple of weeks. Don't be the one coming up with all the new You just sit and listen. You pay attention to the people sitting at that table. You realize who the mover and the shaker is. You will find out very quickly, because one thing I've learned about people, we can't fake it, but for so long. Everything that I figured out about those people sitting around that table in my panel interview 3 years later is still true. And I figured that in one conversation with one question. It's a magic pill, I'm telling you. Ask that question. That gave me the leg up when I got there. Because I knew who to go to, who to talk to, how to talk to this one. Learn how different people communicate. So all those people sitting around that table, there was one millennial, everybody else was baby boomer. But because I understood where they were coming from, I also knew, don't step on their toes. Play it cool. Let them talk. Let them teach you. Learn from them. And then you figure out how to incorporate what you're doing. And people would say this to me, and it would always make me feel good. Calandra came here, and she picked up really well how we do things, but she added her own nuance. And anytime I heard somebody say that, I would go, yeah, that's what I was going for. So that's what you always want to do. It's not about fitting in. It's about understanding the culture so you can sit at the table and gain respect. People do not respect you because of your title. Can we be real for a minute? People don't care if you're I'm the director of operations. Some people are like, and? They don't care. They care about what I do. They care about how I treat people. all right? And you treat people at their best when you understand them and when you learn and take the time to build relationships. Okay, we're going to move on. I may stay on that so long. This is my favorite book in the world. I did this. Has anybody seen this book ever? Oh my God. So when I was in leadership classes, I think I took it in 2 different classes, probably like the first version, the first edition, the Leadership Challenge. The reason I like this book is that even I was in grad school, 20 years ago, these principles are still relevant. Regardless as to what generation you're from, what year you're talking about, these are the 5 practices of exemplary leadership that I still swear by. It doesn't matter. Leadership is leadership, no matter the context. The context may change. The content does not. So Kouzes and Posner actually went and they interviewed leaders, and they kind of picked out the practices that they did, and they came up with these 5 practices of exemplary leadership. These were the common themes that they saw. Well, they're up to the 6th edition because they keep doing it over and over again. So I think it was 20, 30 years ago they did the first time. They're still coming up with the same 5. So it still works. There's some things that you do not have to change, okay? Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. Modeling the way. These are the building blocks to leadership. As you're running up the corporate ladder, please buy this book. Please read these. Please see it when you are in your environments. So modeling the way just means be an example. See what others are doing, and that's how you add your nuances to things. Leadership is not about, this is a quote from the book, leadership is not about who you are, but what you do. Now, they say that millennials are in a position to be the great influencers in healthcare, and may even turn healthcare upside down. So if you've got that power, use it for good, and get some of this behind you to model the way. Always set expectations. If you are a leader, I tell people this all the time, and I tell my staff, don't expect people to do stuff because you think they should know that they should do it. Baby boomers tend to be that way because all of them felt like, well, you just do the right thing and you'll be fine. But sometimes you don't know what the right thing is to do because we haven't clarified the values. So when we talked about the cell phone, what was the value behind that? The value was making sure we paid attention to our patients, not whether or not somebody was on their phone. Inspire a shared vision. Real leaders know how to take the bigger picture view and look to the future without forgetting the past and without ignoring the present. But you always lead for the future, especially in healthcare. That's why I love that you're looking at healthcare policy. I look back at a project that I worked on before I came to Westchester. It was when ACA was not even really complete, but they were still talking about it. We knew that we were going to be losing money and revenues, but we weren't sure how to prepare for it. So we said, well, this is our strategy. We're going to reduce as much expense as we can to put ourselves ahead of the curve and ahead of the game. So we had a program and a project where we were going to save $150 million in overtime savings over the first 3 years. We don't know what AC is going to look like. We don't know what anything that's going to look like. But we're going to put ourselves in a position that hopefully we'll be prepared. And we were. And when I look back on it, now that we did see what the effects of ACA were, we put ourselves in a good position. You have to look forward and look ahead, even if you don't know what the answers are going to be then. Challenge the process. Millennials are good at challenging the process. So you all kind of know what that one is already. But these are the 2 that I really like. Enable others to act. Millennials can lead. You can lead. You can be leaders. You can be effective. But you just have to learn how to foster collaboration. Collaboration does not mean getting people at a table and telling everybody what to do. That's not even delegation. That's just being a jerk. Collaboration is seeing, I know that Brandon knows how to do this. I know that Sana knows how to do that. I know how to bring this to the table. Let's bring us all to the table, and let's see how we can put all of our gifts and talents together and create what we need to do. That's collaboration. And if you're really smart, you'll learn from them as you're doing it. And encouraging the heart. This is what we talk about, making sure that you recognize people. Smile at people. That's why I told you all to smile when you came in. It's okay. It's okay to make a personal connection. So if you can, grab this book. They sell it on Amazon. It's not that expensive, and it's one of the things that you should have in your library. This is my last point. As you're running up the corporate ladder, you're learning to understand people, you're learning how to work with different generations, but this is what I really want you to get. Get some wisdom. Learn how to be a wise leader. My boss, I love my boss. He went to Cornell undergrad, I think, went to Cornell Med School, did his residency at New York Hospital. He's been there forever too. And he's now the chief operating officer for all of behavioral health on all of our campuses. And he's one of the wisest men I know. So there's fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Which one do you think is more beneficial in the long term? Yes, ma'am.
Fluid intelligence.
Why?
Because, I mean, it's good to have, it's good to know what you're doing, but you also have to move along with the times. So the more you learn as you go along, I think you can also use it in the future. You can take stuff you've learned in the past and use it there as well. That's
a good point. So learning is a continuum. So having that continuous intelligence. Anyone else have another thought? We all just agree. Yes, ma'am.
I would say crystallized,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel when you talk about wisdom, right, I think the fluid is more in the moment, whereas I think when you look back at experiences, you sort of build in and connect all of them, and you sort of lead to the wisdom I feel like we're getting at.
Any other thoughts? How many of you think neither is important? Just wing it. Yes, sir.
Well, I don't think one's more important than the other. I think it's more important to know which one you're better at and being able to leverage whichever one you're not for like the rest of your team. So I don't have to have the experience because I'm like a young administrator. But if there's older people on my team, then having that fluid intelligence and being able to leverage what they know is going to be more important than me having to just put in that years and get to where they are.
Very good. All three of you are correct. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm being fluid right now. When I came in here, I was going to say, well, crystallized intelligence is the one that people really want when they're looking at leaders in their organization. And that's one of the concerns that many leaders have about losing the baby boomers and some of the older Gen Xers. Because a lot of millennials, you can do anything. You could do things. But the crystallized intelligence was really rooted in older populations, and workforce is concerned about losing that. So in one way, they're saying that the crystallized intelligence is much more beneficial. You do have to do both. Now, when I was doing my research, it said that crystallized was the better to work toward. But I'm being flexible right now, and I like this young man's answer. You have to figure out what works best for you. Have both. But no, there are some times when it's great to be wise, and there's some times when you just have to know what to do. Because I know a lot of people who can see the big picture, but they pay no attention to how to get to that big picture. So what do? That's how you build teams. Because maybe you have somebody who's got the wisdom, you've got somebody who's got that fluid intelligence, and you make it all work. That's a good leader. Taking all these things. Okay, so I like to watch Chopped on the Food Network because I think it's totally amazing to me how these people who are, some of them are professional chefs, some of them just like to cook. It amazes me how they could just take a basket of stuff that makes no sense together and within minutes figure out how to put it together and make it edible. It's fascinating to me. I am so impressed with those people. But that's what we really do every day. You walk into a new hospital, somebody's putting a chop basket right in front of you. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to figure out how to utilize all the things that people are throwing at you and make it work? So my last quote, now I didn't put quotes around this because I read it somewhere and I couldn't remember where I had read it. Knowledge speaks but wisdom listens. This goes back to what my mom said. Keep your mouth shut and your ears open and your eyes open. So I looked it up. I was like, where did I hear this before? Jimi Hendrix said it. I was like, oh, that's why. But then they keep saying, well, he didn't really say it. He said it, but somebody else said it before. I'm saying Jimi Hendrix said this, and I'm attributing this to him. Thank you, Jimmy. Knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens. I want you all to gain wisdom. Run up that ladder, but please learn how to be long-standing and sustaining so that you can go anywhere and do anything. Let them come after you. Let them want to have you at their job. Let them want to call you to say, you know what? I know that Sana knows how to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to call her and find out how I can do this. Building relationships with people so that you can do that, so they can say, you know what? I know I can call Calandra because she's done this before. She did a really good job with it. Don't just run. Don't just run for the positions. Learn how to be wise. Learn how to be good leaders.